Did you see my shirt today?
No, what does it say?
The future is female.
Oh, prophetic.
I'm just feeling it today.
Yes,
feeling
ma'am.
a little extra these days, if you know what I mean.
I'm so happy.
Yep.
Hi, Julian Benzavalli.
Hello, Patrick Hines.
Fam, we've got some breaking news. Girl, tell them.
Okay, merch is back, everybody.
Yeah.
We're doing merch. So, quick announcement about the merch. We're going to do a Patreon presale on September 3rd.
Yes.
For Patreon members at the $5 and above tier. That's going to be a 24-hour presale. You get a 10% discount.
Yeah, think about that 10% discount. If you're on the Patreon or you sign up for the Patreon, that 10% discount probably pays for like a month or two or more, depending on how much you get.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
I'm not good at math, but I believe you. So this is going to be posted on Patreon and emailed about, but we want to give you a heads up now. And then the general sale is going to open on September 4th.
And I got to tell you, we've been working on this merch for a really long time. It's much more Julian and Steve's thing, but it looks really, really good. There's new stuff. There's old stuff. We're working with this new company that's made like amazing designs. We're obsessed.
It's just a little bit of an introduction to our new merch vibes.
Yeah, totally.
We're starting with some classics. I don't know. Go check it out on September 3rd and or 4th.
Yes. All right, girl. What are we talking about today?
So this is on Max, formerly known as HBO Max, formerly known as just HBO.
I know.
Channel called HBO.
Remember like HBO from
Barely.
our childhood?
It's not TV, it's HBO. It's called Disappeared, the Bradley Sisters.
When Tracy entered her apartment from work on the morning of the 6th, around noonish, there was a note that was discovered in the house.
There was a note on the back of the couch. It said that they were going to the school and they was going up to the store. I find it odd.
And when we went up the stairs, my mom opened the door. My mom just knocked the TV over and got to crying and got to calling the family.
My sister, Marie, told Tracy, do not call the police. Let's just look for the kids, because if you call the police, they're going to take Vicky and Rita. I was scared. I wanted to find them, like on my own to see if I can find them, and see who house they went to, and just look around. So we went by the lake and all over there and everything, searching and asking, have you seen two little girls? They're like, no.
And in your mind, you're thinking, I left them alone. I could get in trouble for this.
Yes.
Right at the top, we meet a woman named Pamela Childs. She's a retired detective from the Chicago Police Department. This is the case of her life.
She's like, most people hear Special Victims Unit, they think about Benson and Stabler. No. This is my life.
Yes.
She's like, I lived SVU and it haunts me. Also, you're welcome
I know.
for the work that I've done. And this is like the case of cases for her. Every cop has one. This is hers.
And we'll learn she caught this case in month 1 of her career.
Yeah.
And she's never been able to let it go.
Her first case on the job in the year 2001.
Yes.
So it's the case of Diamond and Tionda Bradley. They have been missing for 23 years.
Yeah, Diamond was 3 when she went missing. Tionda was 10.
Yeah.
We also meet Ed Carroll. He's a retired Chicago police detective. He's on this case with Pam. He's like, it's kind of oxygen-y in the way that like Pam's like the lead person here and Ed's like the number 2. He was an officer for 26 years. He retired in 2013. He said, I was a detective for 13 years. I still missed the job. I said, go back, girl.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'd have you.
Well, the pension probably.
Oh, yeah.
Need that pension. Retirement fund, the whole thing.
I know.
But I think that's why a lot of these people end up being PIs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you put in your time, you do the good work, and then, you get the pension and you go do something else.
Yeah.
So we jump to July 4th, 2001. This is 2 days before the girls go missing. And we learn that this case will become the largest missing persons investigation in Chicago up to that point.
Yeah.
That really heartened me that 2 little black girls went missing and the entire police force of the city of Chicago.
Everything stopped.
All
for them.
hands on deck looking for these
Totally.
amazing, cute little kids.
Yeah. So it's July 4th, and Kathy, who's the executive director of YR Media, is like, let me tell you how big July 4th is in Chicago.
Chicago loves July 4th, apparently.
It's a massive party weekend.
Our July 4th celebrations in Chicago are very robust, very loud, very crowded. No matter where you go, you can ride down any street in any neighborhood and you can smell the barbecue coming from the grills. You can hear the kids playing. Maybe you can see the ice cream truck. You hear the fireworks.
It's the summer weekend in Chicago.
Who
So
knew?
we're told.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I know.
my Chicago friends, if that's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's like,
God damn
opening
it.
day of the Chicago Cubs is probably pretty big. But you hear my Chicago
I
in there?
heard it. I'm
All
really, but I love Chicago. I love Chicago so much.
I do too. Yeah.
I think that lake is so gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's so, and you can just like jump into the lake and go swimming right off the highway.
Yeah.
I've seen people do it.
So Kathy's telling us that
Yes.
July 4th is like the biggest
Huge.
weekend of the year.
It's Christmas.
So Tracy is the mother of the girls, and she is here with us throughout. We We get so many members of Tionda's and Diamond's family.
Yeah.
And Tracy, the mother, is here and she's front and center.
I'm going to tell you right now, fam, there is a jaw-dropping twist at the end of this thing. In a way that, like, I literally wrote in my notes, my jaw is on the table. I was absolutely shocked at the thing that happens at the end.
Yeah, it is shocking. It is.
Yeah.
But there are looking back, you're like, there are the breadcrumbs. There they are. Because a lot of this just isn't fully adding up to me. It's like 2 + 2 = frog.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. You know what I mean? It's like 2 plus
Do it again.
octagon.
Yeah. Equals
Decimal point.
Okay.
It equals another
Nailed
math
it.
thing.
No, you nailed it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, it makes no sense. And then now translate that to Mandarin. And
Right.
that is like, some of these things just really don't make any sense at all.
It's true. We also meet Diamond and Tionda's sisters, Victoria and Rita. And they're here and they're saying that July 4th weekend was the last weekend we were all together. It was like their last beautiful memory of being together as a family before the girls go missing.
Yeah, and Tracy, the mom, is like, let me tell you, it's exactly what that weekend was supposed to be. They had the big cookout. The whole family was there. They're in Washington Park. The aunts, the cousins, like everybody was there. And because we're meeting the family, they're telling us about Tionda and Diamond.
Tionda was very outspoken, very mature for her age. She knew how to cook during that time. She was a little mini adult, to be honest. So she took that role of having a big personality so that way you knew who she were.
She loved to cook. She was always cooking.
I mean, she's 10.
She sounds awesome.
Daisy can barely make toast. Daisy is 10.
Is that, I feel like at 10, they're like basically adults.
You know,
they're getting there.
Like, I would say in some ways, yes. In other ways, like, not really. Like, can you imagine, were you cooking at 10 years old?
I don't remember. Probably not.
It's weird when you have a kid and you see them at the age because you can then kind of remember yourself
what you
at that
were
age.
doing, yeah.
Yeah, because like Daisy will make her own macaroni and cheese now,
Great.
which is kind of a big deal. But like I can't imagine.
Well, she has the drive and the passion. That's why. When you really want to do something, is she making the Brussels sprouts?
No.
Hell no.
Absolutely not.
Oh, mac and cheese.
She can make chocolate milk like nobody's business.
So you're in the other room, you hear the
yeah.
of the oven, of the stove turning on. What is she?
Is it macaroni and cheese o'clock? It absolutely
Broccoli,
is.
never.
Absolutely
Carrots,
not.
never.
No. But Diamond was 3. They said that she was a little bit shy. She had barrettes and beads in her hair at all times. She was the baby. Like, she knew about 20 words.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, she was like they were just their good. I mean, this never should have happened.
Of course. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And
they were like little girls with their whole lives ahead of them.
Right.
You know?
And they were fucking great. And like, this is infuriating.
So we learned that Tracy, the mom, was dating, quote, a friend of hers at the time. Guess what his name is?
Okay, his name is George Washington. Parents,
I know.
why do you do this?
You know what? When your last name is Washington and you have a boy, you are presented with 2 options. You know what I mean? You either name it George or you don't.
It's door number 2. You don't do it.
Yeah.
Because clearly they thought it was a good thing. But what they don't understand, and believe me, I'm not defending this guy.
Right.
I'm just saying in general,
Yeah.
you are subjecting your child to a lifetime of, wait, really?
I know.
Wait,
I know.
that's your name?
Well, can I tell you?
Forever, for the rest of their lives. And that's the least of the bad shit I want to happen to this guy.
I know. Yeah.
But parents in general, can you think about recess?
I know.
Can you think about
I know.
the world we live in and to not add any more torture to your child by naming them something ridiculous?
There's also the other thing when you're given a name before the famous person becomes famous. For example, I have 2 examples of this.
Okay.
I have a friend named Corey Love with a younger sister named Courtney. And she was named Courtney long before Courtney Love became like a name that you know.
It's a great name.
Also, my older sister's best friend, her name is Ann Jackson. Guess what her brother's name is?
Chris?
Michael.
Yeah,
I know. His name is Michael Jackson. And the thing is, he's a musician. He plays with Bridget Everett in her band.
There's yes, I've seen that before where it's like not Michael Jackson or like Michael Jackson playwright or Michael Jackson, you know, Michael R. Jackson.
Or there's Christopher Lloyd, the TV producer from The Golden Girls who went on to create Modern Family.
Not Christopher
who is
Lloyd.
Not the,
Other
Doc.
Christopher Lloyd.
Exactly. From Back to the Future. It's all, the world is a confusing place.
It is.
I feel really the worst in this situation for Courtney Love. Not that Courtney.
Well, she came first.
I mean,
this is an entire bit from Office Space where the guy's name is Michael Bolton. And they're like,
God,
are you
really?
a fan? And he's like, fuck.
I
and
know.
he's like, not a Michael Bolton fan, obviously. But the first question is like, are you a fan?
Yeah,
and he's no.
I know.
And then someone is like, well, why don't you just change your name? And he's like, why should I change? He's
I know.
the one who sucks.
It's funny, right. It's like, also he doesn't. His voice is
I know that.
timeless.
I'm quoting the movie.
He's like a
everyone.
Celine Dion for men. Like his voice, we just heard him in the car the other day. I will die on this. Michael
Wow.
Bolton is, oh my God.
Great.
Yeah.
It was a joke from a movie from 1998.
But everyone
want
go
from
home and
me?
listen to Michael Bolton tonight. And then a
Okay.
little bit of Courtney Love.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Hey,
anyway,
this is fucking awesome.
absolutely. But Pamela, our main detective here, Pamela wants to learn more about George.
Also, Pamela never calls him George. She calls him George Washington every time.
I know.
Because she's like, you're with me on this, right?
Yeah.
Why do people do this? Why, like,
I know.
this isn't
I
a
know.
Courtney Love, your friend Courtney Love came first
Right.
situation.
Yeah.
This is to,
They did that.
and they meant it, I
Yeah.
guess, as a compliment.
Well, this guy is a piece of shit, but this is the only thing here that's not his fault.
Right.
You
Which
know
is
what I
like,
mean?
don't get it twisted. I'm not defending. I mean,
Yeah.
he's awful.
Yeah.
I'm glad he has a lifetime of really good, like that among other things, like enter the fire ants, like whatever we got for this guy. But just in general, parents, just think, because it's not all about you.
I
Do you know what I'm saying?
It's true. But, we learned that at the time of the disappearance, Tracy'd been dating George Washington for 5 or 6 years. April, Tracy's sister, says,
She didn't like George. She loved him. She was in love with George. And I've never seen her as happy as I was with George.
She was super, super happy. But the thing is, they spent all of their time together at his house.
Yeah.
And it's very clear by the cops, by the daughters themselves, George Washington, this asshole.
I know.
Didn't really have any use. He didn't have any use for the girls. He didn't want to be around them. He didn't want to get to know them.
Yeah.
Like daughter Rita tells us she was never at his house. They never even had so much as a meal together. And I'm like, well, that's a little interesting because after 6 years,
Yeah.
your daughters don't know this man at all. You're super in love. He makes you super happy. Like,
Yeah.
what's the reasoning for your kids who are your whole life, I hope?
Well, and Tracy, the mom, is going to tell us she was sort of caught in this abusive relationship with George, that like she really loved him and he was awful to her and she couldn't find her way out of the relationship.
Right. So the question is like, oh, was she protecting her girls from him? I mean, I also think he's not the type of guy who wants to help her or care at all for these 4 girls.
Yeah.
But I also wonder if part of it was her trying to keep them away from him.
But it's also like, yeah,
I will never know.
I will never know. So July 5th, 2001, it's now the day before the girls go missing. We learn about a camping trip.
Yeah. So
And like, dear listener, this is going to be confusing because it's confusing.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
So around the time of the disappearance, George asks Tracy to go camping. Tracy can't remember if it was the day after July 4th. Maybe it was the week before.
Yeah.
Literally is what she says. Regardless, it was very, very close to when Diamond and Tionda went missing.
George was like, we're going to take all 4 girls, but no, now we're only going to take 2 of the girls and the other 2 we're going to go sleep at the grandma's house.
So remember, for the first time ever, because this George guy didn't want anything to do with her kids, for the first time ever, George wants Tracy's kids around, but he wants to split them up.
Down in Atlanta, it was like, we're going to take Tiana and Diamond first, and then you and Victoria the next week.
Because my mama, she wasn't struggling, but come on, you got 4 kids, so, it was a hard time. And they just felt like they couldn't afford to take all 4.
And the idea is like, well, wrangling 4 young kids is a lot. And it's
especially like in the woods.
And it's expensive. And I'm like, all right, I'll buy that. Goddess knows I'm not taking myself camping.
No.
So I understand
and
like 4
camping
young
for
kids.
2 weeks. Like I will never, like even campers, I would agree, will say like, that's not a vacation. Like if you're camping for 2 weeks in the woods.
It's a lot that goes into it.
You're working, you gotta cook your own food.
course,
I'm assuming you're hunting your own food. I don't know.
we're not
Are you like
hunting.
cleaning your own water? How does this work?
No.
You know what I mean?
But again,
you
lots of prep.
foraging?
Lots
Are
of
you,
prep.
Yeah.
Be careful of those berries.
I know.
I don't know what are the
I
good
know.
berries or the bad berries.
There's a lot of lessons you can learn the hard way in the woods, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
It's true.
Which is why I don't go there.
Right. Which is why they probably weren't going.
Well, right. Like,
Because
that's...
it's not like Tracy was like, I've always wanted to go camping, and finally George was nice to me this day and decided to take me. So they're not like a camping family. They they're not like interested in that. And also, he never wanted to be around her kids ever, and now he wants to take them on this 2-week camping trip, but separate them.
Yes. So we learn, at least for the purposes of the story we're being told now, July 5th, Rita and Victoria, the 2 that didn't go missing, were dropped off at the grandmother's house on July 5th. July 6th, Diamond and Tionda, they're left home while Tracy, the mom, goes to work. So the story that Tracy is telling right now is that last night, I took 2 of the daughters to grandma's house, then came home, spent the evening with Diamond and Tionda, and my boyfriend, George Washington. The next morning, July 6th, I woke up at 6 a.m. and George took me to work, leaving the 10-year-old and the 3-year-old home alone.
But she also, there's a lot that she can't remember.
Yeah.
Because I want to go through the ages real quick, because it's not like they took the 2 oldest ones or whatever. So Rita, who's with us today.
Yes.
So this is all their ages at the time of the disappearance. Rita, who's with us today, was 12.
Yeah.
Tionda, who's missing, was 10. Victoria was around 8 or 9.
She's with us today.
And Diamond was 3 and missing. So the 10-year-old and the 3-year-old are missing, and the 12-year-old and the 9-year-old are here. So that is how they split them up, which is like interesting to Pam, the detective.
I think that's interesting. It's what's also is something we have to talk about is that Tracy, the mom, is saying,
I told Tionda, I'm going to work. After that, we go camping. Don't open the door for nobody.
So you 2 adults are the only 2 people that had knowledge that Tionda and Diamond was in that apartment alone.
Right.
They were told not to open the door for anyone, and we learned later from the other siblings that happened all the time.
Now,
like that was just what was going on.
I want to be very, very sensitive here because Tracy is a single mother, low income. This is exactly my story. My mom had the same thing. We also lived in Section 8 housing. We were very young. We were often left alone to care for ourselves, but to care for each other as a group. There were 4 of us. You know, my older sister is 4 years older than me. I was at first really concerned about this. I am. 10 is way too young to be leaving them for the day and leaving the 10-year-old in charge of the 3-year-old. But I then remembered my mom did this to us. I was definitely 10 years old in charge of like my 9-year-old sister and my like 4-year-old brother when my mom would go to work during the summer.
Right.
And so like, I'm saying it's too young and I don't think any parent should do this with the knowledge that my mother also did this to us.
Right. The thing that is the most like pressing matter to me is that because Tracy says they dropped off Rita and Victoria not missing at grandma's, but Tionda and Diamond were at home.
Yeah.
And then Tracy's like, well, we went somewhere and then I went to work and then after that we were going to go camping.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, why the 4 of the girls couldn't go to the grandmother's house or one of the older girls couldn't help? Like I'm
the
not.
important thing here is that they're separating the kids.
They're separating the kids and actively, like, Tracy leaves Tionda and Diamond at home, 3 years old and 10 years old. And the only people who know that they're home alone are Tracy, the mother, and George Washington, the boyfriend.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
No, absolutely not. So Tracy is saying she was calling home on her lunch break. Tracy's shift is short. It's from 7 to 11.
It's a few hours.
Yes.
So in her mind, this is what she is telling us.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm dropping the other girls who aren't going camping with their grandmother because that's where they're going to be for the weekend. We are leaving for the camping trip immediately after I get out of work. It's from 7 to 11.
Yeah.
They'll probably be napping and watching cartoons. I can leave them home for a few hours while I go to work, swing by the house, pick them up, and off we go on the camping trip.
Yes.
That's the plan.
Yep, and she's saying that even with it only being a couple hours she was going to be away, she's calling the kids on her lunch break.
So I called and I called and I called. It wasn't no answer. It just kept going to voicemail. Then I called my mom. And she kept calling. She kept calling the house too.
But no one is answering. So, like, this doesn't give her enough pause to go home and check on the kids or even call. We're going to learn there's a next-door neighbor that they're kind of close with. She doesn't call them to go check on the kids. But at around 11, George Washington picks her up from work, takes her home. She's going into the house, like, calling for the girls. There's no answer. And they find a note on the couch.
And the back door was open.
And the back door was open.
Right.
So this note was written by Tionda, and it says that they were going to the school, presumably to play on the playground, and then going to the store. Now, Tracy...
And it says, love Tionda.
Love Tionda. Tracy's sister tells Tracy not to call the police. She says, if you do, they're going to take your older kids away from you. Let's just go look for the kids on our own.
And we see this a lot. We see this and hear this a lot
This
from parents.
broke my heart. This absolutely broke my heart that this single Black mother felt that she couldn't call the cops to report her kids missing because the cops weren't going to help her. And not only were they not going to help her, they were going to take her other 2 kids away.
And how many times do we, like, how it's valid. It's a valid fear for her to have.
Absolutely valid.
So Detective Pamela from SVU, the real SVU, she starts the case over. She's going to start right from the beginning. We see this tactic all the time.
Yeah, which is a good tactic. This, like, all
Fresh
these years
eyes.
later, like, this is usually how they get the guy.
She goes to their apartment complex. The building had a side door.
The side door that was always held open by a rock or something that they stuck in it to get in and out. Rarely did the kids use the front entrance, which would be right here. They always went around to the side entrance.
anybody on earth can come and go as they please. And let me tell you, in 2023, when Detective Pamela goes, it's still there. Why? Like, just can't people just have like a key to it then?
I know I'm
harping on something that is a very specific thing.
Well, but it's one of those things where like it's what got us here. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's what got us here.
And there it is, that fucking rock.
I know. But so, at the end of the day of looking, Tracy goes home without the kids and she calls her mother and the mother's like, you got to call the cops. But it's been 7 hours now since the girls have been missing.
So it's July 6, 2001, 8 hours missing. It's 7 o'clock that evening.
Yeah.
The police are finally called. And just for the timeline, Tracy has not seen 2 of her kids since 6 a.m.
Yeah.
She gets home at 11 a.m. It is now 7 p.m. And that means like the bad guy has an 8-hour head start at the very least.
And Pam tells us every cop in Chicago was sent out. That's what we were saying earlier. Like it was a 5-alarm fire. Everyone is out looking for these kids.
And everyone also goes over to Tracy's house, like the John Bonet aspect, right?
Yes.
But like Pamela says,
I observed the apartment was in normal disarray, which means that tables weren't turned over. It didn't appear to be a fight, but it was just normal household items in the apartment.
She calls it normal disarray. She's like, this is what a house that has 4 kids looks like. It's nothing crazy.
To which I said normal disarray is officially my drag name.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It is
good.
officially my drag name.
Yep.
Like normal disarray, I can't believe we've never heard this before because that's exactly right. You go to like any house where there's children and it's quote normal disarray.
Right.
There's
another random South Park thing I know. When Butters wants to be like an evil like superhero, he's Professor Chaos and his little sidekick is General Disarray.
Oh, really?
It's very cute. It's very wholesome and cute because Butters is like the nice one.
Totally.
So he's Professor Chaos, and all he does is he's like making sure that you get the wrong order at the restaurant, and he's like hee hee hee.
Oh my
it's
God.
like it's not a real chaos.
When I heard normal disarray, I immediately heard Mama RuPaul going disarray.
Yeah.
Shantae, you stay.
Shantae, you stay.
Normal disarray. I'm obsessed.
Amazing.
I'm absolutely obsessed.
But the point is, like, no 4th century. This isn't a mess. It just looks like a busy family with some young kids. Like it's not,
and this is where Pamela's saying, like, remember, she was like one of the first detectives there. She said that night she interviewed Tracy for about an hour. And once again, we get the story. Like, Diamond and Tionda were left home alone at 6 a.m. when George Washington took Tracy to work. And like, again, the 2 adults are the only people who knew that the kids were home alone.
And also, like, everyone in the family, because I have a big family, they're super close, everyone came to the house. So there's really no way you can properly process this crime scene because she invited everyone over for 8 hours before the cops were called. So because SVU Pamela is like, in my heart of hearts, these girls were kidnapped by someone they knew. Right. There's no question.
They had to let somebody in. They knew the person.
And she's like, and the only 2 people I can really look at for this are Tracy, the mom, and George Washington, the boyfriend, because as we know, they were the only adults who knew that the girls were home alone, except maybe the grandmother, but she didn't have anything to do with this.
Yeah, and like, Pam is saying when she was talking to Tracy throughout this initial interview that her demeanor ranged from distraught to afraid to defensive, to which I was like, this all sounds normal.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Totally valid.
And of course you're going to be defensive. Like everyone,
obviously.
I mean, because like poor people are forced to make really hard decisions about childcare. My mother was one of those people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The question is, why did you wait so long to call the police? That's the first question. So
and
of
like,
course
why did you leave your kids home alone when you went to work?
Yeah.
Because I can't afford a babysitter. Exactly.
Obviously. So here's another weird thing, or not weird at all, because this train's never late. The boyfriend never got involved. So remember the boyfriend, George Washington, who never had any interest in being with the girls ever and for any way, suddenly wants to split them up and take them on this long camping trip. Now he also doesn't want to be involved at all. The entire city, every cop, everyone was looking. It's the biggest search to date for the city of Chicago, and George Washington can't be bothered.
He stayed in the car.
He told Tracy to call him. Later, let him know what's going on with Tionda and Diamond. That evening, he never returns.
He's like, call me later if you want, and give me an update if you want. And then he just never shows up.
This sounds almost like it's going to be open and shut, but coming out of the ad, we get this on-screen text that says, as of the date of this broadcast, no individuals have been charged with any crimes relating to the disappearance of Diamond and Tionda Bradley. The police have not named any persons of interest. It's been 22 years.
I know.
You know?
I know. So it's July 6, 2001. Diamond and Tionda have been missing for 1 day. And SVU Pam wants to find out what Tracy was doing before she called the cops. So it's like, okay, I understand why you didn't call the police. Totally valid. But like, what were you doing? Where were you searching? Who was involved? Like, what can we learn from those very valuable 8 hours?
She basically says she was searching the lakefront. That, like, she says George Washington dropped her off at some bridge. She went out and searched the lakefront, found nothing. That's also the same area that the police would later search. They also found nothing. But we also now learn about a man named George Senior. I think is how they say his name.
Yeah.
But his nickname is Porgy. And like, that's what everybody called him. Everybody called him Porgy. He was a family friend. He lived in an apartment in the building where Tracy lived with her kids.
He lived right next door.
Right next door. He would sometimes babysit for the girls. They say the girls would know to go to his place for help if they needed it.
Someone says like he was family, not DNA, but like as close as you can get to someone. I'm like, totally get it.
Yeah. Keep it. Just put a pin in him. We'll get back to him.
And Tracy says, she didn't go over to his apartment, but she called him and he said that he hadn't seen the girls.
Yeah.
And so let's dive into this note, because the note says, me and Diamond are going to the store and to the school. Love, Tionda.
Yeah.
What store? What school? It's July 4th weekend. Like, what are we talking about
I was
here?
very glad to hear, or at least it was interesting to me to hear that the mom didn't know what the store meant. It's not like they had the one store that they always go to.
Right. Like, what's the store? And remember,
Right.
Tionda, and again, Tionda is 10. She probably doesn't know the name of the store she always goes to. But Tionda is 10, Diamond is 3. Can a 3-year-old really be walking all over town? Like, have they ever, do they do this at all? No.
I mean, and we also, so Pam sort of retraces the step from the apartment to the likely store that they went to.
We are a few blocks away from the complex, not a great distance for adults and children to walk, but a great distance for children alone to walk.
It's several blocks away, and I'm sorry, no 3-year-old is just walking that.
Yeah, SVU Pam, she walks to a major supermarket that's in like a shopping center, and she's like, this could be any number of the stores they went to, so
but
it's
the
a
closest
safe bet.
one to the house. So it's like, this is being like the most fair that maybe Diamond could have walked it. Like, this is how far she would have had to have gone.
Yeah, and she's
any
like,
parent is like, absolutely not.
Yeah, she's like, it's not that far for an adult, but like 2 kids to walk, like definitely not. A 3-year-old, no.
Right. And also, like, do the kids have money? Like, what are they getting at the store? How are they getting it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
We'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, it makes no, like, why are you going to this? Your mom's about to be home. Like, you're going camping. It makes 0 sense.
Yeah.
So SVU Pam also walks to the schoolyard. And I'm like, school, July 4th, what? Tionda was going to summer school there, or like a summer program. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this makes a little more sense why she would be going there. Or
But
like why we're talking about school in July. But it also, again, makes 0 sense.
It makes 0 sense. There's a playground there. They think maybe the girls were going there. There's no evidence that the girls ever showed up at the
No
school.
witnesses, nothing.
Yeah.
And so the note is weird for a lot of reasons. The handwriting analysis, which we know is kind of meaningless these days, says that Tionda wrote it, but it doesn't sound like her. So was she told to write it?
Yeah.
Like, what is the situation there? It really, nothing about this note makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
Because she's also never done that before. It's not anything that she does. So if she's leaving the house, it would be for some kind of an emergency, not to just like take a stroll with her 3-year-old sister.
No. So now it's July 7th, 2001. It's the day after the girls go missing. Tracy's sister, Faith, is at the apartment.
And Faith had recently set up all of the family's cell phones. She decided to listen to Tracy's voicemail, and the family was shocked to find there was a message from Tionda from the day of the disappearance.
Faith is the Steve Tipton of this family because she recently set up everybody's cell phone.
Yes.
So she knows all the passwords. She knows everything.
Now, remember, it's 2001. Cell phones were very, very new.
Very new.
I will get into this in a minute, but just keep that in mind. It's not like today everyone got their new iPhones. No. This was a brand new lease on life for everyone in 2001.
In fact, 2001 is when I got my first cell phone.
I don't remember when but I'm just saying it was a time where it was like a what?
Yeah.
A cell phone?
And only some people had them.
And it wasn't enormous like in the movie, it was like,
they
this
weren't
was
even
new.
flip phones yet. Like, they were still like that little, they were like the big,
it was
nightmare.
Like, just for like our young friends.
Yeah.
There was a time where people didn't have a handheld phone in their back pocket. And the phone is not, you used it to make a phone call.
Yes.
That's all you did.
It's true. And like, there was no texting. And I remember my friend Ashley, who I just saw in LA, she would bring a spare battery because the battery would run out so fast.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's very early in any kind of cell phone.
Yep.
Just remember that. I'll dive into it in a minute.
So Faith, who just set up all the phones for the family, is like, let me just look at Tracy, the mom's phone, and see if there are any voicemails. And there is one.
Now, there are like unlistened to voicemails from the day of the disappearance. And I'm like, okay, there are 2 little girls missing for 2 days, and there are unlistened to voicemails on anyone's phone.
Now, like you're saying, it is possible that nobody thought to look at the phone.
That we didn't know.
Brand new. Like, and also they had a landline with an answering machine, presumably, or voicemail on the, they're probably thinking, like, if they're going to call anywhere, they would have called the landline.
Yeah, it's like, I really can't stress enough that having a phone on you back in 2001, like, you probably didn't always take it with you when you left. You weren't like that wasn't what the world was back then.
And it's just occurring to me that like Faith is saying these phones were brand new. So would Tionda even have had her mother's cell phone number? Where like no one says it was written down somewhere, or we made her memorize the number so she would know to call it.
Or maybe she left her phone number when she left to work. That would make sense. Like, I have my, like, of course, if you're leaving your kids for a few hours, I would think that you'd want them to have every phone number possible.
Dear listener, if you're wondering if this is about to become suspicious, which is why we're talking about like,
guess what?
Guess what? It's about to get suspicious.
So, okay, I'm going to break this all down for everyone.
Yeah.
So SVU Pam asks everyone what the message said because everyone heard the message. It was played for everyone because everyone was sort of like the house was the main point for their like search and investigation, whatever. The message says,
Mom, answer the phone. George is at the door. He said something about Victoria cake.
Okay.
Her exact words, we're going to the store to pick up Vicky a cake with George.
we're going to the store to pick up Vicky a cake with George.
Now, every member of the family that is interviewed for this documentary says they heard this voicemail.
Yes.
This voicemail, we have not heard it. This voicemail, we are going to learn down the road, was like surreptitiously deleted.
Well, we're going to learn right now.
Yeah.
Because I like, you know what would really solve the mystery of what was said? Can we just hear it?
Right.
HBO, can you play it? No, we can't. It has been deleted.
Deleted.
We will get into how and why and if it existed in 2 minutes.
Right. But importantly, every member of the family says they heard it and that it all said some version of that thing.
And that George Washington is involved in whatever the message said.
Well, just the name George.
So, because remember, the girls know two different Georges.
Yes.
George Washington, the boyfriend, who they never met and wanted nothing to do with them for 6 years.
I mean, they met him, but like he didn't want anything to do with
They barely knew each other. As a 3-year-old, you don't know this guy.
Exactly. But he was like, it's not like he's like a stranger to them. Like he knew, like they knew him.
Barely. They've been together 6 years. The oldest daughter is like 12.
Yeah.
These girls don't know him.
What I'm saying is they would recognize his voice, is what I'm saying. If he's knocking on the door saying.
I disagree.
Really?
I do. I really do.
Okay.
I think they're too little. They're too young. He really wanted nothing to do with them. They never went to his house. The mother was always going to see him. Like, we hear from the girls that are with us that, like, there was no contact at all.
Well, I'm wondering why you're saying this, because the only two people if this voicemail exists and they said George, it can only either be George Washington or the other George, who we call Porgy. And all of the sisters, everyone is saying
George Senior was also referred to by the family as Porgy. We never called Porgy George, never in our life. We never went by that name.
So there's no misunderstanding.
No misunderstanding, no misunderstanding.
everyone knew him as Porgy.
Yep.
They probably didn't even know his name was George.
Rita and Vicky, who are with us today, are adamant. Like, they just learned his name is George.
Yes.
They're like, what? We never, ever, ever called him that. It was Porgy, always, always. So if she said George on the voicemail, it wasn't the neighbor.
Right. So I'm saying they would have recognized his voice enough to know that it was George, the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't think this voicemail exists.
Yeah. So that's right.
I think people want to get the guy.
Yeah.
And I totally am on board with getting the guy.
Oh.
And I think we're getting some information that wouldn't it be great if we can place George Washington at the scene. I think everyone's heart is in the right place. I don't think that voicemail exists.
Oh my God. The look of my brain is exploding.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Because we'll get there.
Yeah.
Because why didn't they write George on the note? Why doesn't the note have anything about a cake on it? Like, I don't understand why George now gives a shit about her kids when he never did.
Right.
He wasn't celebrating any birthdays for 6 years.
My thing is, I was wondering if this was George coming to the door to get the girls out, to take them to do whatever he did to them. You know?
Sure.
And like the door was locked and the mom had said, do not let anybody in. So they're now calling the mom saying, hey, should we open the door or not? Because, wait, can we jump?
No, I mean, that's valid. Those are,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
So, but my thing is that, like, this puts George, like, legitimately at the scene. And the fact that his name isn't listed in the note is that he didn't know that they called the mom and said his name.
Also, this whole thing about Vicky's birthday cake, Vicky's birthday was July 7th.
Yeah.
Why are you going camping on your daughter's birthday, but you're not taking her? So Vicky is one of the daughters who is staying at the grandmother's house.
Yeah.
So on her 9th birthday, her mother and George Washington are taking 2 of her siblings camping and leaving her at home. And the mother didn't have the wherewithal to get her daughter a birthday cake, but the boyfriend is coming to take the 2 little girls to get Vicky the birthday cake.
The boyfriend,
none of this makes sense.
Who's never expressed any interest in these kids and has only ever expressed disdain for these children, suddenly wants to get her a birthday cake.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And why are you going camping when your daughter's about to have a birthday?
Yeah. more on this voicemail, because does it exist? Does it not? Did it happen? Did it not? There's an aunt here.
Great Aunt Sheila's here to save the day.
I know. And Sheila is saying to Pam and to the other investigator today, I heard the voicemail. I recorded it on like a recording device. I emailed it to myself as a sound file, and it's in my email somewhere. And Ed, the PI, is like, great, let us hear it. And she's like, well...
I mean, I would love to be able to access it, but if I don't put the correct code in it to get it, because I had some technical help to protect my emails, if I could, I would, but I'm sure that it'll destroy it.
If I could, I would, but I'm sure it would destroy it. I'm going to stop here for a second.
Yeah.
Cell phones, again, were very new in 2001. We were barely in our flip phone era, okay?
Yeah.
I don't know how easy it would be, number one, to record audio and email it to yourself from a 2001 phone to begin with.
Yes.
That's number one.
Yeah.
So you're tech savvy enough to be a 40-year-old in 2001 who has their first ever cell phone, who's never used something like this before, yet you have your emails so protected that you can no longer access them today. Also, why can't you access your own emails? Why do they need to be protected so much? Why do your emails need such intense security? And why don't you care more about not being able to hear this voicemail?
Right.
She's very like, ooh, sorry.
Well, especially because Ed, the PI, is like, I will come to you anywhere in the world with like a tech from the FBI,
right,
who I promise you will be able to get into your email and not destroy
he
the
said,
sound
I'll
file.
pay on my own pocket.
Yes. That's also just not,
sorry.
That's not how destroying sound files works. You know what I mean?
And Ed's like, to this day, I haven't heard that message. So this whole, like, if I put in the wrong code, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What are you saying to me right now about your emails are so protected? Who the fuck do you think you are?
Right, yeah.
What are you saying to me?
When this could crack the case wide open. You know what I mean?
Right. And this whole like, oh, I had this thing with this code. Like, what are you talking about?
And we've never, in the 800 other documentaries we've ever done, we've never heard of something like this.
Never once heard anything like this. It doesn't make any sense. And like, everybody has a different story. Everyone has a different story about the time of the voicemail, what it said, who left it. It just does not make any sense at all. Like, I wish she never brought it up.
Well, and the other thing is, like, one of our journalists here says,
no one that I've spoken to in law enforcement has been able to confirm the existence of the voicemail, but multiple family members say that they did hear it.
No one's ever been able to prove that this voicemail exists one way or the other. You know what I mean?
I don't think it happened, and I don't think it was for anything nefarious necessarily.
Yeah.
I just think people were trying to get some movement on a case, and now it kind of got a little too big, and now the lie has to be this sort of impossible, I can't or my phone will explode, I'm so sorry, I can't do it.
Yeah, that really does make sense. The only other
Feels
thing
like it got bigger than everybody else.
The only other thing I can think of, too, though, is how easily you could have accidentally deleted a voicemail when you're trying to save it or you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah.
Or no one was like, just for safety, let's all record it.
Yes. Especially in the heat of the moment, I'm thinking the kid's been missing for 8 hours or a day or whatever it was, and you just realize you have a voicemail from them. Like, I don't know. You
Am
know,
I doing that thing where I'm harping because we have all this context 20-something years later and I'm like focusing on something that is unrealistic?
It doesn't make any sense. Like, what you're like, the fact, and especially for Great Aunt Sheila to be like, I have it, but unfortunately I can't give it to you.
Then don't even mention it.
That doesn't, it doesn't make any sense.
Right?
Yeah.
So George Washington says he wasn't there. He denies everything.
Yeah.
There's this quote we get from USA Today. The boyfriend confirmed he took Tracy to work that morning, but denied showing up at the apartment later when the girls allegedly called their mom to say that someone was at the door.
Yeah, and so now it's July 9th. They've been missing for 3 days, and the police are kind of fed up with Tracy's shit, the mom. And they're like, now they're dragging her downtown for like a serious interview about like, you know what happened to the kids. And she's starting to shut down because she's saying she doesn't.
And because she doesn't like being questioned, she doesn't want to feel like a suspect. She says she's obviously going through so much trying to find out what happened to the girl. So they are clashing here. Again, this happens all the time. And also, just while we're here, weren't they going camping?
I expected to see something that would say, yes, we are really doing this. We're going on a camping trip. But I didn't see anything that told me they were going camping.
No supplies, not a tent to be found. I thought they were leaving that day.
I was going to say, they were leaving right after work that day. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
so
there's no bags packed, there's no tent, there's no water jugs or whatever you take.
Right,
there's
canteens.
No flint and whatever the other thing is you need to make fire.
Sure, a match.
You know,
a match.
Flint and that other thing.
Sure, the other thing. Is the answer to that, George had all of it and he was going to pick it up, and the reason it's not at Tracy, the mom's house, is because she didn't have any of those supplies. George was taking care of that, maybe.
Who knows?
But it doesn't seem like they were going camping. And remember, Victoria was about to turn 9.
Yes.
Why are you going on a camping trip without her?
Right.
And Tracy also, even today to SVU Pam, because Pam's like, girl, can you help us with some of the camping stuff real quick? Like, she asks her, why did you split up the girls? And why did you split them up the way you did? Like, it wasn't the 2 oldest and the 2 youngest. Like, why isn't Victoria coming if it's her birthday? And Tracy today, like, she just doesn't have an answer for that.
But you know what? That makes sense to me, too. She was in an abusive relationship, and she wants this man to love her. And he probably said, this is what we're doing. And she just went along with it.
And SVU Pam is asking her in a different way than I'm sure the cops were asking her back in 2001, which is why Tracy shut down.
Yeah. And Pam is saying, like, there wasn't ever enough to charge Tracy, but she feels very strongly that George Washington is the offender.
Well, especially because we learn about some really intense and messy drama that was going on with Tracy and George.
This is wild. And this is just where it starts to get wild, fam. Like, this gets crazy
We're
from
off
here.
and running now.
Yeah.
So Tracy sued George for paternity because Tracy claims that Diamond, one of the missing girls, the youngest,
3-year-old,
is George's biological daughter.
Yes.
Now, right now in this documentary, we don't have the results yet. We don't know.
Yeah.
But on top of that,
when George found out that you had Diamond, what was his reaction?
He was upset because I think during that time he was married.
He was married.
It's been 6 years. He's been married the whole time.
The entire time. So while he's married, he is in a relationship with Tracy. Tracy gets pregnant with Diamond.
Right.
George didn't want to deal with the consequences of his actions, and George is angry and now threatening Tracy, being like, I'm not going to raise this fucking kid. Like, absolutely not.
But he's also, according to Tracy, telling Tracy that if you ever leave me, I'll kill you. So I'm not going to raise this kid. I'm not going to pay child support. But if you ever leave me, I'll kill you. And I believe Tracy.
Yes, of course, of course. So this gets messier. We'll get back to it.
Yeah. So now, I mean, my God, it's July 9th, 2001. I will never understand why people keep the receipts. I'll never, ever understand. The cops get a search warrant for George Washington's house and car, and they find receipts indicate on July 7th, the day after the disappearance, this piece of shit goes to a hardware store and buys industrial trash bags and 2 pairs of like heavy duty gloves.
Yeah.
When the police come to his house, there were 5 trash bags missing from that roll, and one of the pairs of gloves was gone.
Which
as well.
means, by the way, that someone had to take out that entire roll and count the garbage bags to see how many were missing.
Oh my God, yes, I know.
Right?
I know. And so George Washington tells the cops he'd been using the trash bags in a home renovation project.
Is that right?
Is that right?
Oh, okay.
Show me the renovation, George. He had also taken the bags and disposed of them in a trash cans in a nearby park. And of course, by the time the cops get there,
gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
Boy.
I know.
Well, thanks a lot, George.
I
guess we'll be on our way. But
first, we're going to question the neighbors.
So witnesses say that the boyfriend, George Washington, I can't believe his name is George
I know.
Washington.
It's like George Michael from Arrested Development.
It feels like I'm making a joke when I'm not.
I know.
What I'm about to say is super serious, and it puts me in a shitty position of having to say that this guy's fucking name is George Washington. Like, it makes me sound like an asshole.
Not to me, girl. You sound great to me. You're doing a great job.
But I feel like don't make like
I know.
So, but witnesses say that this piece of shit was burning things in a barrel in his garage, and then he took the barrel and put it in his trunk.
Yeah.
To which I'm like, I'm sorry, the entire city of Chicago was in on the search, right?
Yeah.
Like, how is this not suspicious?
I know. But George, of course, denies this, saying he doesn't even own a barrel, a word I cannot spell.
However, when the FBI went to investigate, they found evidence of charring on the rafters of his garage. And in the trunk of his car, they found striations that were consistent with the size and shape of an industrial barrel.
So FBI found evidence consistent with what all the neighbors said happened.
Exactly.
And what the receipts said.
And he's also missing trash cans and one of those sets of heavy duty gloves. If you think about what this means.
Right. Are you going to haul him in for questioning or what? Like, what are we?
He killed these little girls and burned their bodies in a barrel in the garage and then put them in the trash bags and then did God only knows what. And
That's what happened.
It is like we watch these things in documentaries and it gives us a little bit of distance. It feels like you're watching a movie, so it feels like it's not real. This is a thing that really happened.
Oh, God, of
to
course.
these little, beautiful little kids. It is sometimes beyond my comprehension.
It is. It is.
Like monsters who can do something like this exist in the world.
Sure.
I you would think after 8 years I'd be there. I'm not quite there yet.
Oh, God, never.
You know? I know.
Never. It's like a battle every day.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like news to anyone.
I know.
But this shit is like
I used to say when people would ask us like a Q&A, it's like, how do you guys deal with it? I'm like, I'm kind of a machine. Like I watch it and then we process it by talking about it and then I'm over it. Nope, not anymore. Not when it comes to these little kids. It's so hard.
Welcome to the fucking sad party.
I know. I know.
It's great, right?
I know. But you know what? We love our jobs.
We do.
So like George gives a statement to the media. He just says like, I don't know who did anything. I just know that I had nothing to do with it. How about George saying like, I really hope those beautiful little girls are okay.
Sure, yeah.
How about saying anything that makes you sound like a fucking human being?
Oh, no, you can't do that.
No.
That's impossible.
Yeah.
So SVU Pamela has her theory about what happened here based on everything that we just learned.
Yeah.
George Washington did not want to pay any child support or care for his biological daughter because she is making the assumption that Diamond is his biological daughter.
Yeah.
He killed Diamond, his daughter, and Tionda was a witness, so he killed her too. That is SVU Pam's theory.
Yeah.
I'm finding it hard to come up with anything else that could have happened. I mean, to me, this
absolutely
seems,
agree.
right?
I absolutely agree.
So we get 10 minutes. Back in 2001, the cops loved polygraphs. Detective Ed is like, it's like the sun rose and set on them, even though they're inadmissible. I'm like, Ed, girl, we know. Innocent people fail them. Guilty people pass them.
Yeah.
We hate them.
Yep.
But back in 2001 in Chicago, they were all the rage.
And George passed the polygraph test.
Meaningless to me.
Unless it gave us what we wanted, and then it's
of course.
absolutely
But
true.
then I'd be like, well, find me something else then. It's inadmissible. I'm not using that shit. What
totally.
about the barrels or the witnesses or
Right.
the FBI evidence? Like anything?
Exactly.
No, it's the polygraph through and through.
100%.
Amazing. Was it 5:01? Everyone's got to get home for their
It's
fucking
quit time.
roast
It's
or
quit time.
whatever.
Right, totally.
All right.
Oh, Jillian's Law.
We're working overtime, goddammit.
That's the tagline for the show.
We're working overtime.
We're working overtime. That's so good.
Oh, boy, whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not.
So there is not enough evidence to arrest George Washington or Tracy, we learn, because of course the cops, and it's like, I know that cops are shitty and they haven't been treating Tracy very well, but they are the adults in this story. So like that's Pamela's like, we couldn't arrest either of them. And Pamela's like, they are the only two adults who knew they were home. Like we're looking for evidence to solve this thing.
And it does really feel like Tracy knows more than she's saying. She is in an abusive relationship with 100%. A man who is abusing her.
Who's threatened to kill her on a regular basis.
And if she knows things that he did, she's scared. And she already told us she feels like she can't go to the police.
100%.
She feels like there's nobody to keep her safe. And I sympathize with that.
I get it. So it's August 1st, 2001, 26 days missing. We meet Foster, no last name. He's a private eye.
And I love this guy.
He's great.
Yeah.
Late August of 2001, I was asked to join the case to assist the local law enforcement agency interviewing people that did not have a good relationship with the Chicago Police Department at the time.
The family, but Tracy in particular, didn't want to talk to the cops. We totally understand why. There just was not a good relationship there. So Foster was like, you know what?
Yeah.
We need to keep things moving. Let me help. Let me just be the middle person here and try to just get some work done because that's the goal here. So 3 weeks after the girls go missing,
DNA testing was completed. And it's safe to say that the test came back positive that George Washington is the father of Diamond.
Yes.
George Washington, the boyfriend, is Diamond's father. So Tracy was right the whole time.
Pam is saying like that made the hair stand up on the back of her neck because now she knows that he has a motive to kill this little girl.
But also I'm thinking 3 weeks. So that means, and she sued him for paternity. Remember, Tracy sued George for paternity. So 3 weeks. And I'm like, oh my God, these girls went missing like maybe the day or the day after the paternity test was ordered. 3 weeks.
Is that right?
So now everyone is looking at George Washington because they're like, oh, she sued him for paternity. The girls go missing immediately, one of which is definitely his daughter thanks to science and the DNA. So like, okay, he definitely did this. Also,
we get this crazy fact here.
This is like a level of petty and a level of messy.
Yeah.
So George's wife that he was cheating on with Tracy, her name is Diamond.
Yes.
And Tracy is sitting here today, like laughing about it. She's like, oh my God, I totally named his daughter after his wife, like for sure.
That's so funny. I took it as like trying to make nice with the wife or like George Washington insisted that she be called Diamond.
No.
Okay.
Because she's like, yep, I named my baby after her.
Yeah.
Like, I felt a little bit like, oh no, you're going to deal with it in one way or the other. So she's yours and I'm naming her after your wife.
And also, even after the paternity comes back, he's still denying being the dad. Like, how does that work, George
Shut
Washington?
the fuck up. That is actually impossible. Like, what a dirtbag.
But like Pam is just saying that like now he knows he's going to end up having to pay child support and this gives him motive to kill the kids.
And also another thing that's confusing me is like Diamond was 3 years old.
Yeah.
So they were fighting over paternity for 3 years.
Right.
While they were still together and dating and an item. And now George Washington wants to take the same kid that he's refusing is his out camping.
Right.
hello? Like,
Exactly.
I feel insane.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going crazy.
Yeah. Well,
I'm over the fucking voicemail. That made me feel insane. Now this is like, that's nothing compared to this.
I mean, the whole thing about the planning of the camping trip and the separating of the kids and the girl with the birthday doesn't get to come on the trip. He was clearly trying to get Diamond alone. He was always going to do something bad to her. And like, doesn't it make more sense that like we went on a camping trip and she drowned or something?
Yeah.
You know?
So 2 months later now, so the girls went missing in July. Months are going by. And now, remember, it's 2001.
Yeah.
The September 11th attacks happen.
At the time, huge amounts of resources were suddenly being diverted to, potential terror attacks and that sort of thing. And so not only did the media attention on the case dry up, but I believe also some of the interest from law enforcement because of kind of the situation in the rest of the country.
This is not the first time we've heard this, that like all media attention is gone from this case. All resources are diverted. Everyone is looking at domestic terrorism. They're looking at 9/11.
Yes.
Everything is focused on that.
Right.
And the family is left abandoned.
Right. There is a vigil every year, but the case eventually goes cold.
Yeah.
So it's May 4th, 2005, 4 years missing. There's a major discovery, we're told, about like 20 minutes away from the Bradley home.
Their bones, like human bones, are found near railroad tracks by a construction crew. And they're like, could this possibly be the girls?
Right. So they call in Dr. Clyde Snow, who's this like famous forensic scientist. They want us to know that he worked on the John Wayne Gacy case again.
Which
Illinois,
is important because
Chicagoland.
like there was like bone, like hundreds of bones under his house. And like, I guess he was able to help identify these boys for their families. So he's good at this.
Right. And it's just a little detour because we learned very quickly that the bones did not belong to Tionda or Diamond Bradley. And I'm sitting here being like,
I know.
okay.
We always do this.
Now I know that, but I sincerely hope that the remains you found brought some closure or justice to someone else out there who was suffering because of the loss of a loved one. So thanks for letting me know and giving me more nightmare fuel.
I know.
And things to worry about and think about and feel unsettled about.
Because
but
the bones belong to a 15-year-old girl, they're saying, and we get no information about. At least like tell us they're looking into it.
So I'm hoping that something was done here that we could get closure or justice or something in some way instead of just sort of throwing
like, never mind. They like rebury the bones.
Like there was
no
reason for us to know this.
Yeah.
But I think what they're trying to say is like they're getting little bits of hope every few years.
Because next up, August 2010, 9 years missing, they decide to once again start to reinvestigate this case from the beginning. And Detective Ed thinks he finds a big piece of evidence. So there were hairs recovered from the trunk of George Washington's car in 2001 from 3 days after the disappearance that had just been sitting in an evidence locker. Nobody knew they were there.
They were never submitted.
They were right, exactly. They were never tested. Nobody knew about it.
It's like they didn't exist until Detective Ed 9 years after the fact was like, what's all this? What's this about?
Can every cold case be restarted from the beginning?
I know.
Like that's the only way they ever get the guy. We see it every single time.
And let's test everything while we're at it.
Exactly. And these hairs are tested. They're a match for Tionda. Once again, recovered from the trunk of George Washington's car 3 days after the girls went missing.
And even worse, everybody, if you're not screaming enough, Ed is told, doesn't matter. It's not good enough. Nothing can be done. The hairs could have been left a million different ways. Maybe Tionda's backpack, secondary transfer,
this was the mom's boyfriend after all, you know.
It's like, I got to kind of see this as a positive, maybe.
But then we learned that George Washington is telling anybody who will listen, of course there's hairs in the trunk. I used to put the girls in the trunk all the time to sneak them into the drive-in.
I can explain. Turns out, you fucking liar.
Yeah.
Not you, George.
Yeah.
There weren't any drive-ins in the Chicagoland area back in 2000. They were all done.
Yeah.
They were all shut down by then.
And also we go back to the sisters who are not missing and they're like,
I never got in his trunk or nothing.
Never been in the trunk of his car.
Never went to a movie with him.
Never went out to eat, not to Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
Nowhere. It was never like that.
That's why I'm like, when people never went to the movies with him, never got in his trunk, never went nowhere.
We never hung out with him. We
Ever.
never did we didn't go to the movies. We didn't go to Chuck E. Cheese. Like nothing.
No.
He barely waved to us. Like this guy did not like us. And also Tracy doesn't remember a drive-in, doesn't even remember going to the movies at all. Doesn't remember, quote, George putting the girls in the back of his trunk. Okay.
And, I do understand that, put this in front of a jury and any reasonable juror is going to be like, right, but the mother could have been it could have been on her coat and she put her coat in the back of the car. You know what I mean?
The secondary transfer thing is totally legit.
Right. And if this is all the evidence we have, it's definitely not enough, but it is enough to say, let's keep fucking looking at this
But
guy.
it's also not the only evidence we have.
Yeah.
Because we have actual receipts from Home Depot or whatever, and the barrels and the witnesses with the burning and the fact that he's an asshole, and the paternity suit. And am I crazy?
No, but it's like, the PI just says, like, we just live in a world where, like, you need a body. Like, 98% of the times, like, you just need a body, or else, like, the prosecutor won't prosecute.
Yeah.
But then we learn, oh my God, in 2003, Tracy has another baby with George Washington.
Named George Jr.
Yeah.
So in 2003, 2 years after her daughters go missing, and however many years, over a decade now of this abusive relationship with this guy, she has another child with him and names the child after George.
And like, just to put a fine point on it, like if what you're saying about the voicemail is true and that they're all lying, including Tracy, and they're in on it, it means that Tracy thinks that he killed Diamond and Tionda.
And I'm just thinking, like, it just feels odd to me. There's something I can't put my finger on about the voicemail.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, like, maybe some of the family thought it would be a good thing because there's no evidence, maybe they were trying to help in some way. I don't know.
My point is just to say that, like, if Tracy is with her family and thinking that George did this to the kids, and then she goes and has another kid with him, make it make sense.
Yeah. And I think it's just a really fucked up abusive relationship, and it has been for years. And the longer it goes, the harder it is to get out of it. And this is where we are with this piece of shit.
So they have the baby in 2003. Then in 2011, he sues her for custody of the baby and wins. He gets the kid.
And by the next year, February of 2012, George gives a statement to a show or something covering the case. They don't say what it is. They just say, like, a show covering the case. And the quote is, "It's funny that the family points the finger at me, but the court seemed to feel differently." Yeah, George, it's hilarious.
Hilarious. So funny.
I can't breathe. I'm laughing so hard.
You know it's your own daughter. You know that your own daughter is missing, and all you care is to give some shitty quote. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a fucking evil.
Yeah. More crazy things keep happening. In May of 2003, there's a new development. There's a girl on TikTok in Texas claiming that she is Diamond.
Right, that she's Diamond Bradley. So SVU Pamela goes to Texas. And
With the family, Tracy goes.
And Private Eye Foster.
Yeah.
And they want to meet up with this person to see if she's the real Diamond. This is huge, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, my daughter's been missing. This is like the phone call people are hoping for. This is wild.
And the girl has apparently submitted DNA to be tested.
But this girl is like, I'm Diamond Bradley. So we hear this phone call. The family is on the phone with this person.
They're in Houston. They're like, we want to see you today.
And the woman who inserted herself into the story is very agitated.
Why would I do a Zoom and I haven't even got the DNA back? I keep getting threats. I've had to deactivate all my social media. No, I don't want to do anything. I don't even want nobody to see me. Until I get that DNA back, I don't want to see nobody. I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't even know if you who you stay with.
She refuses to meet with them.
So she doesn't want to meet until the DNA tests come back. Because she's like, well, now I'm getting all these threats and I have to shut down my social media.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you called us.
Yes.
I don't understand. Like, I'm sorry that's happening, I guess. But maybe if you met, I don't really know. She's very agitated on the phone.
Well, and the mom, Tracy, is like, I'll know instantly if that's actually my daughter.
And Foster, the PI, is like, I got news for you. I know now. She's full of shit.
Yes.
She goes, I think she's lying. She was lying for attention. His whole thing is that the lie went too far, got bigger than her. She freaked out and she's trying to get off the train.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
that's exactly what happened.
That's what's happening now. So they leave Texas, no DNA results. It's another dead end. So now we get on-screen text.
All right, so if you think that any of that was the bombshell, it's not.
It's not.
Pull over. Pull over.
We have multicolored on-screen text, which I don't think we've ever had before, really, so they can hit this point home. So on-screen text. During SVU Pam's interactions with Tracy, she receives a stunning report that calls the fundamental facts of this case into question. And I just said out loud, oh God, now what?
I know.
Everyone?
Because you're thinking it's going to be like an Oxygen, not like Nothing Burger. No, this is real.
On-screen text continues. Tracy Bradley originally told police that she last saw the girls on the morning of July 6th.
Remember, George Washington was taking her to work and she kissed her kids goodbye and said, I'll be back at 11.
And then they were going to go camping.
Yes.
Then it says, but Pam uncovers a phone record. Now it turns red.
Yeah.
The on-screen text highlights red.
Yeah.
Pam uncovers a phone record that signals Tracy was not at home on the night of July 5th or the morning of the 6th, contradicting her original statement, which means Tracy wasn't home for days.
If this is true. So we're going to get an answer, fam. So Pam goes to see Tracy. So Pam says to Tracy, we now know calls were made to your home between 7 p.m. on the night of the 5th and 2:17 a.m. on the morning of the 6th, and you were not home. Somebody was calling, asking for you, and you weren't there. At first, Tracy, the mom, starts to deny it.
Well, we got the facts.
ask. We just need you to.
Maybe I did.
Maybe I did. And you did what?
Was at Mr. Washington house.
That night of the 6th?
Yeah. Yeah, what? I was at Mr. Washington house.
And then she just says it's true.
She admits it.
She admits it.
She lied.
She admits that she lied, that she spent the night before at George Washington's house. This means the girls, a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old, were left home at least at 7 p.m., probably earlier, on the night of the 5th, and weren't going to be seen again until after Tracy's shift the next day at 11 in the morning.
But why are the other 2 girls with the grandmother?
Right.
Why? Because those girls are here with us.
Yes.
They
Yes.
say they were at their grandmother's house. I don't understand.
But this is a bombshell because Tracy is saying like the window of time when the girls would have gone missing, according to Tracy's original story, was from 6 in the morning when she left for work to 11 a.m. when she got home. Now that window extends to at least 7 p.m. the night before. And also, like I was saying, poor people have to make very difficult choices about childcare. My mother was in the exact same boat and made choices that I think she would regret now. Tracy left a 10-year-old in charge of a 3-year-old from at least 7 p.m. the night before. That means that means the 10-year-old is giving the 3-year-old dinner, putting the kid to bed, dealing with any of the things that go on in the middle of the night that a 3-year-old might have to deal with, waking them up the next morning, making them breakfast the next morning.
And the lying, like she told police that she saw her children that morning before she went to work and told them about a full conversation that never happened.
Yes.
Because she, like, there were quotes that she gave, like, I told them, don't open the door for anybody and don't do this. And it's like.
Right. So it's like, so if Tracy is lying about this, what else is she lying about?
What else is she lying about? And she does still say, like, she says that she was scared to tell the truth and because she didn't want people to know that she did leave her kids alone for that long. So she lied to the cops.
So it's either that or she knows that George Washington killed her kids and just can't bring herself to turn him in.
Right.
I'm not saying that that's what I think happened, but it's one or the other.
You think about it and you're like, well, this is why you don't leave your kids alone for 36 hours? Leave them alone overnight?
Yeah, I mean.
Like, I just don't. And why are the other 2 girls with the grandmother? Who wrote that letter?
Well, but it's also what you're saying is, like, I don't love the idea of a 12-year-old being in charge of the kids overnight, but a 12-year-old is better than a 10-year-old.
But there was the whole family is here telling us this story. If the grandmother can have 2 of them, I know that 4 is different than I know a 3-year-old is. I understand that.
Yeah.
But what about Porgy, the neighbor?
Right.
He babysat for them all the time. We learned that the girls knew him and loved him.
Like there
seem to be some options here, and there's so many things that are really confusing to me.
I think the thing that we have to remind ourselves over and over again is that Tracy was in an abusive relationship with a very abusive person, and what he was able to get her to do, like I want to give her that grace because that is obviously true.
She was in an abusive relationship for years.
Yes.
I get it. I do.
But she was putting the children in incredibly risky situations, and now 2 of them are gone.
Yes.
And that can't be denied. And, the thing is, like, this ends with a new beginning because it ends with Pam saying,
now that the timeline for when the girls disappeared has changed, I've decided to form a task force to get to the bottom of what really happened to the girls. We can bring something to the table to try and find Tionda and Diamond.
Pam's decided to form a task force to find out what happened to the girls. And I just wrote, my jaw is on the floor. And I feel like for Tracy to admit it, like she's known this whole time that like that was a major piece to the puzzle. Mm-hmm. And I think she was relieved that now the authorities know. And that will affect the investigation because now we got to go way further back. But like that was maybe one of the most shocking revelations of any documentary for me that we've ever covered.
It was huge. Yeah. It was huge. And I just, I Googled, there are no updates. There was just recently another like just little news report about the vigil that they still have every year. I'm questioning camping at all. I'm questioning did camping maybe come up after the fact? Like I'll never understand why they were separated.
Yeah.
The note makes no sense to me. Why you would leave one of your daughters when she's about to turn 9 on the day that you're camping. I feel like there's so much more here, and I'm hoping maybe that if Tracy feels a little safer talking more about what she knows, I think that there's definitely more to this story.
I would love a part 2. Like if Pam's going to go back and reinvestigate the whole thing, I would be down for a part 2.
Yeah. I mean, this guy is a piece of shit, and it's a tragedy all around, and like my heart breaks for these 2 girls, and I'm really like, I'm stuck on I just have a lot of questions and they all seem really big.
Yes.
And I can't the paternity test is huge.
The
He didn't
voicemail.
want the voicemail that I'm sorry, I don't think is real.
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, because at the end of the day with the
Is
voicemail.
it real? Fuck, I don't know.
No, because if it were real, you would think that great aunt Sheila would be doing everything in her power to, like, if you're saying I'm never going to try to access that voicemail because I'm afraid it'll be deleted, then it's at least worth a shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Great Aunt Sheila, you're what, in your 60s, 70s now? Your emails aren't that important.
No.
And like put in the code, which makes no fucking sense, and risk everything being
because it was
destroyed.
This voicemail's from 22 years ago. What have you forgotten that might be the vital clue? If that voicemail is real, you gotta at least try it. Because if you're never gonna hear it, you're never gonna hear it.
Right.
But like if it's gonna, like, you gotta at least try.
You gotta at least try. And that's why I don't think it exists. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy.
Oh, girl, we did. What's it called?
It's called Disappeared, the Bradley Sisters.
I mean, this is a real mystery. I really feel for those little girls. Like,
I know.
You know, like.
It's crazy. So hopefully SVU Pamela, she'll keep the world updated. I hope. I mean, we're all so desperate to have some answers here. So SVU Pam, no pressure or anything, but we'd love to hear from you.
And keep us posted. Fam, join our Facebook group. It's the True Crime Obsessed podcast discussion group. 52,000 people in that group. Crazy. I'm in there every day. You're in there all the time. There's so much fun. It's just a really, really nice community. It's a way to stay up on events. I'm doing meetups all over the summer, but there are meetups happening all over in places that I'm not even going to.
Independently, people are just on their own, just meeting up. And
if you want to create a little group in your community and meet other TCO listeners and make friends, do it. I've been saying, come to the meetups alone, and so many people have been coming to the meetups alone.
That.
And
You're
they say,
never really alone.
No, and they're like, I took your advice and I'm here and I made 5 new friends, and it was just, it's amazing.
My favorite posts are the posts that are like, hey, I live in this area. Does anyone want to be friends? And then there's 100 comments. And I also love the hey, I would love to do a meetup in Northern California. And then it's oh, hey, girl, we already have our group. Find us here. I love all of that. Or people saying I'll start a meetup group with you. And it's just really lovely to see.
It's so great. So it's True Crime Obsessed podcast discussion group. Go find it. Girl, what are we doing next?
So we are doing Murder in the Cove.
Ooh.
We're heading to Nova Scotia.
Wow.
To some fishing villages and dealing with lobster poachers.
Okay.
This is on Amazon Prime. It's on Apple TV.
Wow.
It is, there's a lot going on.
All right.
That's all I'll say.
Stay tuned for the trailer for that, fam, and our funny and hilarious outtakes if there are any.
If there are any, fingers crossed, I guess.
We were mad this week.
Hey, guess what? Fuck you, George Washington.
Fuck you, George Washington.
I hate you. I hope you're miserable. Have the day you deserve.
Have the day you deserve.
Hate you. Bye.
All right, we love you.
Love you.
Not you, George Washington.
Not you. Anyone but.
Everyone but you. Okay, bye.
Bye.
This concept of vigilante justice is just never right.
There's no winner here.
The damage breakdown in the middle of the boat. I would call that beat to fuck, my lord.
When you grow up in a fishing area, there's one thing you know of, and it's not to steal from a fisherman.
We did what we did. It wasn't right. It definitely wasn't right for them to go fucking kill him over lobster, though.
That's not murder, that's torture. He tortured a man before he died.
I could never understand people coming up to me and saying he got what he deserved.
There was a line right down the middle, just tore the community apart.
Might as well to read the truth.
If he wasn't a murderer, it'd be kind of like, oh my God, your name is George Washington.
But I'd
That's
be
so cool.
That sucks, right?
You poor thing.
You can be honest with me.
I know.
That sucks. What's your middle name? Do you go by?
Yeah. It's like Roosevelt.
Yeah.
You know?
Jefferson.
Clinton.
Adams. Hamilton, Burr. Let's just do the whole fucking cast.
Lincoln.
All of them.
Oh my God. Harris.
Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, you missed it.
Grover Cleveland. Oh, Harrison. Of course. I was like, what? Biggest search to date in the city of Chicago. It's the biggest search.
Hey, you watch your mouth.
I hate that rock as much as Elmo hates Rocco.
And also, yeah.
She's like, oh, so now Elmo has to save Rocco. Tango, wait, stop. Do you know that? Tango, wait, stop. Oh my God, it's so good.
Great, now Elmo needs to save Rocco. Tango, wait, stop.